The esoteric community is plagued by a dual problem. One is the myth of both progress and what I call the dying man. So in esoterica, there's this whole thing of, we're moving forward, we're evolving the world, we're bringing a new utopia into existence. Well, given all of the issues with utopianism and its penchant for mass murder, I'll leave that one alone. But the idea of progress within the meditative community and yogic and magical arts is a bit comedic on the surface. Now, why is this? Well, for one, the fundamental technologies and techniques and methods we employ are, old. Not just a little old. I mean, really, really, really old. At a minimum, a lot of this technology goes back to the time of the Egyptians, and by that I mean the ancient Egyptians that we don't actually know much about, and quite possibly goes back quite a bit further. I mean, if you look into my specialty of letter magic, for example, what's commonly known as Kabbalah, the early Israelites were probably practicing this back before the split with the Canaanites. Prior to that, in the Phoenicians, we don't really know what was going on with this. What we do know is that it had moved out of popular practice by the time of the Romans. So, there you go. How much progress can you really make when you're just repeating patterns and utilizing technology that's been around for 7,000 years? Okay, you can make an argument about its popularization can help free mankind and more yada, 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 free will. But the reality is there's not a whole lot of progress there. There might be quite a bit of personal empowerment. Okay, I'm game for that, and that seems to make sense. But humanity is what humanity is. We're not inventing steel here. We're just following a pattern that already exists. I mean, I've said many times that I have invented nothing. And that's very true. The 60 skills curriculum might have reorganized some things, quite possibly provided some positive definitions to terms that are nebulously used. I'll certainly go that far. But in terms of my inventing anything, the body work, the breath work, the energy work, the mind techniques, guys, these are all derivative. Now, it would take you a really long time to put a system like this together by yourself, but that's kind of what I did. So the myth of progress is just that, a myth. I mean, if you really want to make progress in human endeavors, you should probably invent the next thing that's a groundbreaking fundamental technology like, steel. But if you do a study of these groundbreaking technologies between about 850 AD and 1950 AD, exactly 4,000 people came up with a unique idea that actually survived. That's how rare actual invention is. Everything else is derivative. So that's a point to keep in mind in these meditative communities. And the idea that humankind is somehow pushing forward to this grand utopia, I'd be very wary of. If you look up utopianism, it is usually a mask for mass murdering of one's political opponents. But that's more of a political discussion and not something we're going to get into here. Now, the meditative community also tends to suffer from another form of delusion that I call the dying man. Some would say this is a take on solar mythos, where the sun rises and it falls on a daily basis as man rises, ages, and falls and dies. But where you see a lot of this is the idea that the past was some kind of golden age, and the practitioners of a given system are essentially fighting against the dying of the light, that the world has somehow begun to be corrupted, and that they represent the last glowing breaths of this perfect world that previously existed. You can see this a bit in some of the Arthurian myths, for example. This is equally nonsense. People have been dying and being born for a very long time. The idea that we're living in some kind of potentially corrupted age or an age of lesser import is, well, quite frankly, silly. Human living standards, particularly in the developed part of the world, have absolutely never been better. There's absolutely no issue with the sustainability of a developed Western lifestyle, contrary to what you're hearing in the popular press, because quite frankly, the only two things that there are a legitimate shortage of are helium and platinum. Helium because we can't make any more of it, and it comes as a byproduct of natural gas mining in a couple of key locations worldwide for reasons we don't understand. And platinum. Platinum largely comes out of South Africa. It's not widely available in many other places, and the result of which supplies for that are a little constrained. For some reason, we insist on wasting it in things like catalytic converters, for which there are alternative technologies, by the way. So this whole myth of the dying age also infects the yoga community, largely by creating laziness. And this is where I blame my fellow instructors for not doing the hard work of recording their systems in such a way that they can be learned without the teacher. You know, this whole concept of a master and there can be only one is complete BS. Let's just be direct here. It's complete and utter nonsense. It has no foundation in reality. The result of which, because people don't want to spend the time and do the hard work of putting together a coherent syllabus that you can learn from where they clearly spell out methods, is the fact that in the yogic and meditative and magical arts, we are essentially recreating algebra every generation. The result of which is you never get to calculus. Now, I've had some friends tell me, well, part of the art of the esoteric is, figuring these things out on your own and these challenges. There's enough of a challenge just spending the time to practice to develop skill at this. This is one of the only endeavors I've ever found where people openly espouse the idea that your teachers should be bad at teaching and not teach you everything you need to know to do what they do. It's just complete and utter nonsense. And the fact that people continue to put up with this amazes me. I mean, some people here are well aware that the 30-year quest I went on to put these materials together cost me years of my life and hundreds of thousands of US dollars. Only because I went through great personal effort did this actually happen. When in reality, I easily could have learned all of this material in less than 2 years and been completely proficient at it in less than 3, had it simply been better organized and had people not been such jerks about actually showing you what they're doing. And again, this is a bit of a point of personal frustration because as I've road tested these methods with other students, it turns out you can do this stuff pretty quickly. And of course, yes, gratuitous plug, this is also a major reason why I'm holding my seminar in Sayulita, Mexico in February of 2025, so I can share these best practices with a bunch of students, and hopefully they can get to where I am much quicker than I have. So this has been a bit of a rant and quite a bit more philosophical than most of my recordings. But I wanted to get this out there because one of the hard things about esoterica is dividing what is belief from what is technique. And these beliefs of a dying world or progress or utopia or all this other nonsense really hamstring our ability to see what's actually going on. And that's the hard thing about belief. Belief doesn't really change reality that much, but it certainly changes how you engage with reality and, most importantly, what you can perceive in reality or the world around you. So just some points to consider when you're on your yogic and or meditative journey. That being said, as per usual, train hard and be well.